The Baltimore Ravens just went through a game that felt like déjà vu. Remember when the Eagles marched into Baltimore last season and left with a 24-9 win? The box score made it seem like it was a tight battle, but anyone who actually watched that matchup knew the gap between the two teams was far greater than the numbers suggested. Fast forward to now, and the Lions just did the same thing to the Ravens. The scoreboard said 38-30, but the reality on the field showed Detroit was a few steps ahead all night long. It never really felt close. And now, Baltimore sits at 1 win and 2 losses after another frustrating night, with more questions than answers about where this season is heading. The biggest storyline coming out of this game has to be the Ravens' defense. From the first drive, it was clear that Detroit's offense was in full control. They ran the ball at will, threw the ball with ease, and looked comfortable on every single possession. Jared Goff was barely touched, while Lamar Jackson was running for his life all night long. If you had been asked before kickoff which quarterback would take the most sacks, every fan would have said Goff. Instead, he went down 0 times, while Lamar was sacked 7. 7 sacks is outrageous and a reflection of just how badly Baltimore lost the battle in the trenches. The pass rush, which was already a concern earlier this year, looked non-existent. Against Josh Allen and the Bills, it was one thing, because Allen is slippery and knows how to escape. But against Joe Flacco, they barely looked effective either. And now against Jared Goff, who is not exactly known for his mobility, the Ravens still couldn't get to him. They brought 4, 5, even 6 rushers at times, and still could not close the deal. That kind of failure is not just about one game. It points to a larger pattern that has been following this defense since last season. Coordinator Zach might not be on the hot seat yet, but his unit is running out of excuses. Detroit's offense, on the other hand, was firing on all cylinders. The creativity of their play calling stood out over and over again. There was a 4th down run where the ball went to Amon-Ra St. Brown before being pitched to Jahmyr Gibbs, who then took it into the end zone. Plays like that summed up the entire night. The Ravens were often in the right position, but the Lions' design and execution gave their players just enough of an angle to make it work. Detroit even marched down the field for drives of 99 yards and 96 yards in the same game, with almost no help from penalties. Every yard was earned, and Baltimore had no answers. Sam Laporta deserves a special mention. His impact went beyond catching passes. He was blocking like an extra lineman, moving defenders out of the way, and creating space for his teammates. Amon-Ra St. Brown torched Marlon Humphrey multiple times, including a touchdown where Humphrey was beaten right from the snap. And when Detroit needed to keep the ball late, they didn't just milk the clock, they scored again. That's a sign of a confident and aggressive team. Head coach Dan Campbell's fearless approach paid off all night. The stats might not scream domination, because Jared Goff finished with just over 200 yards and St. Brown had 77. But the eye test told the truth. Goff was calm, collected, and never pressured. He never put the ball in harm's way. David Montgomery ripped off a 72-yard run and finished with over 150 yards on just 12 carries. Gibbs added 2 scores on the ground. That's 4 rushing touchdowns given up by the Ravens' defense in one game, along with 2 marathon drives. That alone says everything about how poorly the front 7 performed. Meanwhile, the Ravens' offense had its moments but couldn't keep up. Lamar's numbers looked strong at a glance. 21 completions on 27 attempts for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. But those stats lose their shine when you add 7 sacks for 55 yards lost. Some of those sacks were on the offensive line, which continues to struggle in both pass protection and run blocking. But a few were on Lamar himself, holding onto the ball too long, waiting for something to open that never did. At times you could see his lack of trust in his blockers, dropping back deeper than usual just to buy a little more space. That mistrust is justified, but it also led to negative plays that Baltimore simply couldn't afford. The running game didn't provide much balance either. Derrick Henry broke free for a 28-yard touchdown early, but outside of that, he had 11 carries for just 22 yards. Once again, predictability hurt Baltimore. When Henry was on the field, defenses expected runs. When Justice Hill was in, defenses leaned toward pass. The Lions sniffed out those tendencies and played accordingly. Henry also fumbled again, his 3rd in 3 games, which is becoming a troubling trend. Opposing defenses will continue to punch at the ball until Baltimore proves they can secure it. The Lions' defense deserves credit too. Yes, they gave up 30 points, but that number doesn't tell the whole story. Their adjustments in the second half were brilliant. They started spying Lamar with a player who wasn't rushing at all, just waiting for him to break the pocket. And it worked repeatedly. Hutchinson and company consistently collapsed the edges, and their linebackers cleaned up anything that leaked through. The goal line stand where Baltimore tried Derrick Henry 3 straight times and came up empty was the ultimate statement. Detroit said no, and they meant it. Even in the passing game, the Ravens never fully found their rhythm. Mark Andrews had 2 touchdowns and was far more involved than in previous weeks. Rashad Bateman made some clutch catches. Justice Hill had a big play late. But Zay Flowers was quiet. DeAndre Hopkins was barely noticeable, and the offense as a whole could not string together drives without pressure wrecking them. Baltimore had opportunities, but Detroit's defense closed the door every time it mattered most. On special teams, the Ravens had a couple of bright spots, like Rasheen Ali breaking a kick return that could have gone the distance if not for the Lions' kicker making a saving tackle. But even that wasn't enough to swing momentum. Tyler Lue nailed a long field goal that looked like a miss at first glance, but outside of that, there wasn't much impact. Detroit even attempted a 68-yarder before halftime, showing once again how bold and aggressive their coaching staff is. By the end of the night, the picture was clear. The Ravens were outcoached, outplayed, and outmuscled on both sides of the ball. They still have the talent to turn things around, but through 3 games, they've scored over 100 points and still carry a losing record. That's not the mark of a serious contender. That's the mark of a team struggling to put the pieces together. And with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs waiting next week, the tests aren't getting any easier. What makes this loss sting even more for Baltimore is how many of the same issues keep showing up. This isn't just about one bad night in Detroit. It is about a pattern stretching back into last season, where the defense starts slow, gives up big numbers to quality quarterbacks, and only seems to tighten up when the competition drops off. That happened last year when the Ravens looked like a top defense late in the season, but most of the quarterbacks they faced in that stretch weren't exactly the cream of the crop. When the level of competition rose again, the same cracks reappeared. Against Josh Allen, the secondary was left scrambling with little help from the pass rush. Against Jared Goff, it looked like déjà vu. And the frustrating part is that this roster has talent, especially in the secondary with first-round picks and experienced veterans. But without pressure up front, even the best defensive backs are left exposed. That brings the spotlight back to Zach Orr. No one is saying he should be fired after only a year, but it's fair to question whether adjustments are being made quickly enough. He played for this team, he knows the culture, and he's deeply tied to the organization. That family connection might buy him patience, but patience runs thin when the same mistakes happen over and over. The Ravens tried 4-man rushes, 5-man rushes, even 6, and nothing worked. That's not just players failing, it's a coaching problem. The Lions weren't rattled once. They looked too comfortable. That is a bad sign for a defense about to face Mahomes, one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the league. The absence of Justin Matabike, who might be out for some time, will make it even tougher. He has been the spark on the interior, and without him, the line looks softer and easier to push around. If he is gone, this defense may slide further. Kyle Hamilton, usually a bright spot, had a quiet game. Roquan Smith didn't look as explosive as he usually does. Young corner Nate Wiggins held his own, but outside of him, it was mistakes and missed tackles. It is rare to see this many Ravens defenders vanish on the same night, but that is exactly what happened. On the offensive side, the story wasn't much brighter. Lamar Jackson's stat line hides how chaotic the night really was. He was efficient with his throws, sure, but 7 sacks killed drives and morale. Some were his fault for holding on too long, but most were the Lions. Ronnie Stanley looked overwhelmed by Aiden Hutchinson, who bullied his way into the backfield. Tyler Linderbaum and Andrew Voorhees had moments where they held up, but not enough. When your quarterback drops back and clearly doesn't trust his line, that's a recipe for disaster. Lamar was drifting too deep, trying to buy time, but that only set him up to be taken down further behind the line. The running game was no better. Derrick Henry's long touchdown run teased fans with a glimpse of what he could be in this offense. But outside of that, it was stonewalled. 11 carries for 22 yards is not going to cut it. And with another fumble added to his season total, defenses now know exactly what to do. Rip at the ball and wait for it to pop loose. 3 games, 3 fumbles. That trend has to stop, or it will sink the offense. What's more frustrating is the predictability. When Henry is in, defenses stack the box, knowing a run is coming. When Justice Hill checks in, they shift to expect a pass. That kind of transparency makes it easier for opponents to game plan. Fans have been asking to see more creativity in how Baltimore uses its backs. Henry showed on one pass play, where he chipped Hutchinson before releasing, that he can help in protection and still contribute on passing downs. But too often, the Ravens signal their intentions before the ball is even snapped. Then there are the questionable decisions. When Lamar connected with Mark Andrews for a late touchdown, the Ravens chose to go for 2. The logic was that if they recovered the onside kick, all they would need was a touchdown and an extra point to win. But the risk outweighed the reward. It felt like a gamble that didn't make sense in the moment, and of course, it didn't pay off. Later, they dialed up a trick play with Derrick Henry throwing a pass, and it just looked unnecessary. In a game where you're already struggling in the trenches, that kind of move comes off as panic, not strategy. The receivers were up and down. Andrews was heavily involved with 2 touchdowns. Bateman came through on key third downs, and Justice Hill made a highlight catch and run that kept hope alive late. But Zay Flowers barely made an impact. DeAndre Hopkins, brought in to be a reliable target, had just 1 catch. Tez Walker made his first reception that wasn't a touchdown, but he was quiet otherwise. The lack of consistent production across the group is concerning. If Andrews isn't carrying the passing attack, the rest of the receivers have not shown they can pick up the slack. Special teams, usually a Ravens' strength, weren't sharp enough to tilt the game. Rasheen Ali nearly broke one, but Detroit's kicker saved the touchdown. Tyler Lue hit a clutch kick, but that was it. And Detroit outsmarted Baltimore before halftime, pushing the ball downfield just enough to set up a 68-yard field goal try. Even though it missed, it was another example of how well-coached and aggressive the Lions were compared to the Ravens' more hesitant approach. By the time the clock hit 0, the game told a bigger story. The Ravens have now scored more points through 3 games than any team with a losing record in NFL history. That stat is shocking. They are moving the ball, putting up numbers, but still finding ways to lose. And that combination, high scoring, sloppy defense, and poor protection, isn't sustainable. If they want to turn the season around, it has to start with the trenches. Protect Lamar. Pressure the opposing quarterback. Right now, neither side of the line is doing its job. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. In a stunning twist that has sent shockwaves through the NFL community, Michael Pierce, the feared defensive tackle who shocked fans with his sudden retirement announcement earlier this year, appears to have had a change of heart. Sources close to the Baltimore Ravens claim that the veteran star has decided to hang up his retirement plans and ink a new deal with the franchise, much to the delight of teammates and fans alike. While no official statement has been released, whispers around the league suggest that Pierce's return could be one of the most talked-about stories of the offseason. The speculation began when insiders noticed Pierce attending team facilities more frequently over the past few weeks, fueling rumors that he was reconsidering his decision. The Ravens, known for their staunch defense and locker room camaraderie, seem to have played a pivotal role in enticing Pierce back into the fold. It's all about the chemistry and the love for the game, an anonymous source hinted. Michael knows what he means to this team, and he's not ready to walk away just yet. Fans have already begun flooding social media with excitement and disbelief. Some are calling it the ultimate comeback, while others joke that Pierce's brief retirement was merely a clever ruse. Analysts speculate that the decision could shift the balance of power in the AFC, as the Ravens gain back a cornerstone of their defensive line at a crucial time. Rumors also suggest that Pierce's new contract could include incentives tied to performance, signaling that the team is not only thrilled to have him back, but also expects him to make a serious impact on the field. While the details remain unofficial, the buzz is undeniable. Michael Pierce, who once seemed ready to walk away from football, might just be preparing for one of the most electrifying chapters of his career. If the murmurs hold true, Ravens fans will have plenty to celebrate, and the rest of the league will undoubtedly be watching closely. The question now is whether Pierce's return can live up to the hype, and if this sudden twist could inspire other veterans to reconsider retirement in the coming months. One thing is certain, the NFL rumor mill has never been hotter. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.